Why spanking isn't the way. Listen to your child's heart. Spanking kids. More harm than good. Hello, wonderful parents. Today, let's talk together about a topic that I believe many of us have struggled with. Perhaps even debated. Should we spank our children or not? Some people say, no. Hitting children is wrong. It harms them. They provide a lot of evidence about the negative effects. But others might argue, my parents spanked me back in the day. And I turned out fine. Or, you have to hit them so they learn fear. So they stop. Truly, this isn't an easy conversation. But today, I'd like to invite you to pause for a moment. To open your hearts and minds. So we can explore some deeper perspectives on spanking children. To better understand what really happens behind those moments of physical punishment. Overview of main points. Before we dive into each aspect, I want to share the main ideas we'll explore together. First, we'll look at the immediate impact of spanking. Yes, it can stop unwanted behavior right away. But what's the cost? Second, and more importantly, we'll analyze 4 profound reasons why spanking is harmful to a child's development and the sacred parent-child relationship in the long run. These are harms that sometimes we don't easily recognize immediately. Alright, let's begin. Part 1. Immediate impact and hidden dangers. So, when we use spanking, does it actually have an impact on the child? The answer is definitely yes. Instantly, the child might stop the behavior we don't want. Like snatching a toy or screaming. Why? Simply because they are afraid. The fear of physical punishment makes them temporarily submit. But friends, that's just the surface. Spanking only addresses the symptom. It makes the child fearful in that moment. But it absolutely does not teach them how to behave correctly. It doesn't help them understand why that behavior was wrong. And what they should do instead. What's the result? Next time, when they have a similar urge, like wanting that toy back again, they might still repeat the old behavior. Especially when the parent, the one with the rod, isn't there. Spanking only teaches children how to hide. How to avoid punishment when the adult is present. But it doesn't truly change the behavior from the root. Even more dangerously, behavioral psychologists have pointed out many hidden risks. One of them is that parents can easily become desensitized to hitting their child. Initially, a light tap might be enough to scare the child. But gradually, the child becomes more hardened. And to achieve the same effect as before, the parent might have to hit harder. More often, more painfully. This cycle is truly frightening. Isn't it? It can push us towards the boundary of abuse without us even realizing it. There's more. If there are times when we are tired, stressed, or simply forget to punish the child as usual, then the very absence of that familiar punishment can inadvertently reinforce the unwanted behavior. It's like the unpleasant feeling, being hit, that the child usually experiences after misbehaving suddenly disappears, making them even more likely to repeat that behavior. And perhaps, the most heartbreaking thing is the resentment the child develops towards their own parents. Have you ever heard your child say, "I hate you, Mom, Dad," after being hit? Or older children might fight back, or simply distance themselves, closing their hearts to their parents. The relationship, which should be the safest and most loving place, becomes one filled with fear and resentment. And it doesn't stop there. Children learn very quickly through observation and imitation. When we use violence to solve problems with our children, we are unintentionally teaching them that this is an acceptable way to treat others, especially those who are weaker. So, although spanking might seem to bring immediate results, it is actually silently causing deep harm to the parent-child relationship and even increasing other problem behaviors in the child that we might not see. Part 2. 4 deep perspectives on the harm of spanking. I know that perhaps many parents among us find it hard to say they've never hit their child. even just a light swat on the bottom. That's completely understandable given cultural contexts and passed down experiences. But now, let's listen to deeper analyses from Dr. Denise Cummins and scientific research to better understand what lies behind this form of punishment. Loving our parents doesn't mean repeating the past. First, let's address the argument many people use: my grandparents. My parents did it back then, and I turned out okay. It's true that we always love and respect our parents and grandparents. But we need to honestly acknowledge that previous generations lived in a different context, with different knowledge and beliefs. There were things accepted back then that we now know are unsuitable, even wrong, like smoking during pregnancy or sexist attitudes. We have learned more, science has advanced, and we have the right to choose what's best for our children based on current understanding. Loving our parents doesn't mean we have to copy exactly how they raised us. We can appreciate what they did, believing it was the best they knew at the time. But simultaneously, we absolutely have the right to reject beliefs or methods that no longer align with our values and knowledge today. That isn't disrespect, it's maturity and responsibility. What does spanking teach children about violence? The second point, and this is really crucial, when you hit your child, what are you teaching them? We parents are bigger, stronger, and know more than our children. Our brains are more fully developed, giving us better self-control, at least in theory. When we use physical force to make our children behave the way we want, we are implicitly sending a very dangerous message. Hitting people who are smaller and weaker than you is an acceptable way to get what you want from them. So, is it any surprise when children who were spanked at home go on to hit weaker peers at school? Or when they grow up, they tend to use violence in other relationships? We ourselves, through our actions, might have unintentionally planted the seeds for those behaviors. Spanking doesn't teach true discipline. It teaches about power based on strength and fear. The risk of parents losing control themselves. Next, a truth that perhaps many of us are reluctant to face. We adults are very susceptible to losing control when we hit our children. Let's be honest with ourselves. Life is full of pressures: work, finances, relationships. We come home tired, disappointed, maybe even carrying anger accumulated throughout the day. At that point, our patience is often very thin. When a child causes a problem, however small, it can be the last straw. And when you start hitting your child in that negative emotional state, you might feel a temporary sense of relief, as if you've released pent-up frustration. It's precisely this dangerous, feel-good sensation that can make you go further. You might hit more, harder than you initially intended. Many parents later admit they lost it, that they crossed the line. And that risk is always present for anyone who allows themselves to use physical punishment. Gradually, hitting the child can become a reflex, a way to release the parent's own emotions. Even for very minor mistakes, we can become addicted to that feeling of relief without daring to face the truth. We're hitting our child because it makes us feel better, not for the child's benefit. Long-term consequences, damaging the relationship and the child's psyche. And finally, what is perhaps most worrying in the long run? Spanking, while it might temporarily stop bad behavior, sows seeds of deep emotional wounds in the child and destroys the relationship between you and your child. Numerous large-scale scientific studies have clearly shown, the more physical punishment children receive, the more defiant they tend to be towards parental authority, and the poorer their relationship with their parents becomes. And sadly, as they grow up, these children are at higher risk of using violence against their partners. Not only that, but psychological scars are almost inevitable. Children are more likely to face mental health issues like chronic anxiety, depression, and problems with substance abuse. Their ability to empathize with others is diminished. and they face more difficulties learning and following society's moral rules and behavioral norms. These are children who become broken from the inside, carrying invisible emotional scars that heavily impact their entire future lives. Closing words. Dear friends, the journey of parenting is never easy. Everyone wants the best for their child. Choosing not to use spanking doesn't mean we are being permissive or neglectful. On the contrary, it's a choice that requires much more patience, understanding, and skill to guide and accompany our children on their path to maturity. Instead of using fear to control, let's use love, respect, and positive discipline methods to nurture our children's souls. Build a strong parent-child relationship where they feel safe to share, learn, and grow. Thank you for listening to these heartfelt thoughts. I hope that together, we can create happy families filled with laughter and love, instead of tears and fear born from spanking.